Real Chat, Episode 4, Commando.
They hunted him down.
You know, Colonel, we went to a lot of trouble to find you.
They murdered his friends. And they took the only thing he would kill for.
If you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate. Right? Wrong.
Now, somewhere, somehow, someone's gonna pay.
Do you think that he is going to give us any problems?
You'll do exactly as he's told.
Hasta luego, fellas.
You're a funny guy, Sully. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
Are you going to tell me what's going on or what?
No. Don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired. What are you doing?
Helping you get her back.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
If it's a mission no man can survive, he's the man for the job. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Commando.
Let's party.
Let's party. Welcome to...
We're opening a whole can of worms here, aren't we?
So was that Schwarzenegger?
It's an open forum, whatever you want to do, guys. If you want to throw Arnie quotes in there, I'm not going to cut them out.
Feel the mood.
Yeah, let him go.
Welcome to episode 4 of Real Chat, a new podcast totally committed to and focused on film as a form of entertainment. It's time to do another 180 and look at one of the biggest guilty pleasures of the history of action cinema, 1985's Commando. And I'm particularly excited because this is our first Schwarzenegger film, Brose.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is interesting because this is my choice, but I'm not actually a massive Schwarzenegger fan by any means. I think there's probably 5 of his films I really like that are really good and solid, but I definitely don't like Schwarzenegger for the sake of it. This is probably my favourite Schwarzenegger film. But whereas Adam, it's worth pointing out, is a massive Schwarzenegger fan and just loves seeing his oiled up, rippling body in anything, really. But yeah, I'm not quite that obsessed.
You see a lot more of it in this film than his average film as well.
Absolutely, you do.
So yes, you're listening to Brose Avard. This is his episode choice we have for today. And don't disturb him, he's dead tired today. Is that right, Brose?
Always my friend.
Mr. Andrew McCaskill over here, who eats green berets for breakfast.
I do. It's true.
And Matthew O'Neill, a funny guy. I like him. That's why I'm going to kill him last.
It's good to see you all again.
This is the 4th episode of our Vintage Vault retrospective series, a conscious effort to tie in selected shows with something of relevance to the present. But why Commando? The best I could think of is it's the 30th anniversary next year. Oh, who are we kidding? It's a Schwarzenegger movie, isn't it?
We don't need to justify it.
Right? Why Commando, bro?
Look, I think it's worth looking at Commando anyway because Schwarzenegger is back in the cinematic realm. He's back out there doing films.
All flops, unfortunately.
Well, you know, that's the last 10 films he did were flops pretty much, weren't they? When was his last hit anyway? Commando, I've chosen Commando today partly because in this series already we've done Ghostbusters, which is easily one of my favourite films of all time. I wanted to move away from kind of repeating the kind of genres we've looked at already, and we haven't looked at action yet, and this film is just one of my favourite action films ever. And if you haven't seen Commando, you've got to go out and see it. So The Running Man is a great film, Total Recall is a great film, and these are great scripts, and they're well executed, and they discuss complex ideas about society, and this film is just a big, dumb action film. It's funny, Schwarzenegger is good in it, and it's just a rollicking good time, and I love this film. We watched it growing up as kids, me and my brothers. My uncle, who was living with my grandmother still at that point, recorded it on VHS for us off the television. This film was rated AO. And we watched it every time we went to my grandmother's place. We just watched this film over and over and over again. And I said it before we started recording. I can't think of a film I would have seen more times than this one. Not because it's, you know, even in my top 25 or top 100 films, but this is what we watched as siblings. This is what we enjoyed watching. This is what my grandmother had on VHS. It was this or Wind in the Willows, the animated movie. So we always agreed that this is the one we'd watch. And can you imagine I don't know, what I would have been an 8-year-old Brose Avard walking around the schoolyard quoting Commando, which was an R-rated film at the time. So
the kids wouldn't have known what you're talking about, but
no idea.
The parents, maybe the teachers.
But this film is incredible for so many reasons. But let's open it up.
Matt, why Commando? Why is it so loved after all this time?
This is the first time I've watched it in about 4 years. I think I got it on TV a few years back, and I saw it as a kid, similar age to Brose as well. And I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it, but it's like a comic book. It's like watching a long lost script by Bill Rixby's Hulk or something like that. It's just a lot of fun. Crazy.
Andrew, initial thoughts?
Yeah, I just think it doesn't hide its pure desire just to be a big fun action movie. No excuses for killing hundreds and hundreds of people and making cracks about them at the end. It just doesn't get much better than that, really, does it?
It was released on the 4th of October 1985 in the US and the 16th of January 1986 in Australia. It was primarily shot in Los Angeles, California, with a budget of an estimated $10 million. It grossed $57.5 million worldwide. This film was directed by John L. Lester. He's created a lot of high-action films throughout his career, including some of the world's biggest box office draws. His directional expertise has garnered praise for such films as Stephen King's supernatural thriller Firestarter.
Firestarter is often forgotten as a film, but as a kid in the 80s, that was a big film, Firestarter, yeah.
Showdown Little Tokyo, starring Dolph Lundgren, and the late Brandon Lee in his first major role.
Showdown Little Tokyo is often forgotten too, and that's correct.
Yeah.
Should be. Yeah.
And 2 movies as part of the same series, Class of 1984 with Michael J. Fox in his first film role.
Wow.
And Class of 1999.
Who would have thought that Commando has 2 references to Back to the Future? That's insane.
Just like that, right off the bat.
Bang, right off the bat. Class of 1984 and Class of 99, less so, but 1984, that was another great film of the 80s that I guess it's worth positioning Commando and some of these films mentioned just in that list too. VHS, let's not undersell how important VHS was for the cinematic world or for the film world. And us growing up, we were right in the middle of the VHS boom. A film like Class of 1984, definitely we hide that one out on VHS. Commando was a VHS film. Firestarter was a massive VHS film. The genre films just did so well on rental, and I don't know, I guess that's why films like this don't stick around the consciousness quite as much anymore, but I don't know, those films, people may not have even heard of those.
That's such a good point, though. I mean,
they're good films.
VHS was an amazing platform for just so many exotic, hard to see films that you would never get a chance to otherwise.
There are 3 people credited as writing this movie: Jeff Loeb, Matthew Wiseman, and Stephen E. D'Souza. Now, he's got the story and the screenplay credit, while the others have only got the story credit.
These guys, this is worth spending some time looking at. The other thing that's worth talking about with this film, this is Schwarzenegger's first significant film where he has dialogue. Before this, he's in Terminator.
Yep,
how many lines? How many lines in that? 3, 4? Like, he says nothing. Sarah Garner. I'll be back. Like, that's it. I've just done it. Before that, he was in, obviously, that horrible Hercules film where he was overdubbed. He was in the Conan films, or Conan films, where he's not doing a lot there either. So this is the first film where he has significant amount of dialogue. The guys that wrote this knew that, and they intentionally didn't give him long passages of dialogue, and instead gave him one-liners. Like, what do we do with this guy? He's not an actor. He's a bodybuilder. How are we going to make it work? One-liners is what they went with. So the reason this film is so damn quotable is they intentionally wrote a script full of these little pithy one-liners. Some of them are kind of tacky, some of them are hilarious, but there's so many of them, who cares? It creates a certain rhythm, a comedic rhythm to the film that makes it so watchable. So just quickly, Jeff Loeb and Matt Wiseman. Jeff Loeb's a comic book writer. He wrote significant comic book series for everyone. DC and Marvel, Batman, Superman, X-Men, Avengers. He's written for everyone, and quite often significant events in comic book history he's created. He wrote the first story arc for No Man's Land, which is a very significant Batman storyline, even in recent years. He's now involved with a lot of the Marvel animation. Also significant, the partnership of Jeff Loeb and Matt Wiseman wrote Teen Wolf and the slightly less successful Teen Wolf 2. And much like Teen Wolf, I believe Commando was held off from release to see how successful Back to the Future was going to be. I think that was part of the factors. I'm not sure.
I think so.
And then Stephen E. D'Souza, on the other hand, wow, this guy's he's a powerhouse. His credits will absolutely blow your mind.
His films have earned over $2 billion at the box office. He started off on the TV show Knight Rider, and then earned his first film credit on 48 Hours. That film, along with Commando, Die Hard, and Die Hard 2...
Wow.
established his reputation as a writer who could juggle both action and humour. That combination remains evident in all of his subsequent work, which expanded to include sci-fi like The Running Man and Judge Dredd, horror, Tales from the Crypt, and fantasy has this: The Flintstones, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. And in 2000, he was honoured with the Norman Lear Award for Lifetime Achievement in Writing. So he's got quite an interesting body of work there.
It has these amazing one-liners that carry Arnie through, kind of creating, I don't know.
It gives birth to Arnie, almost.
It gives birth to Arnie. The Arnie we know is created in this film. And, you know, the embarrassing Arnie in the Batman and Robin film wouldn't have happened without this film, so I apologise. But not that I'm responsible, but, you know. But also, the great thing about this script is that it lets the action dictate the direction. Every action sequence then influences the next part of the narrative or the next part of the plot, which seems really basic, but for not all action. Some action films, it's still the words, it's still the dialogue driving the plot forward, and action sequences are distractions, and that's more so now, I think. Some of the Mission Impossible films kind of are just, oh, now there's a set piece because it's time for it. Whereas Commando, there are these set action pieces that drive everything forward. The plot doesn't advance if that particular sequence doesn't happen. So
Arnold Schwarzenegger plays John Matrix. Although never fully mentioned in the script, we can assume that due to his senior rank of colonel and his expertise with various firearms and explosives, John had a long history of being cross-trained in frontline infantry tactics. Special ops training included, but not limited to airborne, ranger, green beret, survival and evasion tactics.
Wow.
Simply put, John Matrix was basically a one-man unstoppable army.
It's great. It's laughable. It's ridiculous.
I know.
It's ridiculous. And I like it because they've just created... He's an analogy. He's a metaphor. There's no way a person could be this good. There's a great line where his house is first invaded for the first time, and he's got two soldiers that are supposed to protect him because they're aware that he's going to be targeted. And he leans across to the guy and says,
Remember, you're downwind. The air current may tip them off.
Downwind? You think I could smell them coming?
I did.
like, this guy's unstoppable. It's ridiculous how good he is at everything. Oh, I love it. It's great.
Now, Ray Dawn Chong plays Cindy.
Which is, she's African-American and Hawaiian, or I don't know what her background is, but she's definitely...
But that was quite unique, particularly for the time. Is that
very
right?
unique. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
And also, this is a reasonable budget film. It's an up-and-coming star, and it is a bizarre choice.
How do you think she does in this movie?
We don't really see her again, do we?
No.
And I think that sums it up right there. Yeah, she's
in Ray's defence, basically, what does she have to do but watch Arnold Schwarzenegger kill half the population and look either frightened or in awe? So, come on, Ray, she didn't get much, did she?
No, she didn't get much to work with.
And her dad's Chong, isn't it, of Cheech and Chong fame?
Is she?
Yeah.
Is he?
She's the
she's the daughter of Chong.
Right, okay. Wow.
Maybe she was stoned throughout the whole film.
Exactly.
Dan Hedaya plays Colonel Arias. Director Mark L. Lester initially wanted Raul Julia for this role, apparently, but producer Joel Silver insisted on casting Hedaya instead.
Hedaya is one of those... He's the guy you go, oh, that guy. He's that guy. Doesn't he play the father in Clueless?
I think so.
Yeah, like he pops up everywhere. He's an amazing character actor, and he's constantly sitting just in the top of the B grade. But he's reliable, and he's hilarious in this film. His accent, I don't know what his accent is.
What is it?
I have no idea what the accent is.
He's said to be a dictator from the country of Valverde. Do you know about this?
Valverde? That's a type of chutney, isn't it? Or the president trusts you, Matrix. He sounds like he's come out of a bloody Hammer horror film. I don't know what he's doing.
This was a fictionalized South Central American country used by Hollywood from the 1980s to the early 1990s. To depict a Spanish-speaking country similar to Cuba.
Yeah, so generic racism,
right,
rather than specific. Without
encountering diplomatic problems.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It is also referenced in the films Predator and Die Hard 2.
Valverde?
Yeah.
It's such a horrible name. I think the passata I buy to make spaghetti is called Valverde. That's so...
Doesn't make me want to put some on my pie, though, doesn't it?
Now, Vernon Wells.
Ah, Vernon Wells.
Here we go. As iconic as he's become from just this one role.
So, hang on, let's step back a bit. Australian actor.
Yes.
Vernon Wells.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of Mad Max 2 fame.
Exactly right. Yeah. That's it. He wasn't originally cast, though. He did audition for the role, but another actor actually got the part.
Yeah.
On the first day of filming, Mark Lester fired the other actor and hired Wells. This is the reason that Bennett's clothes seem so tight. because Wells was bigger than the original actor.
As evidenced before we started recording, I have Vernon Wells' autograph, which I got when I was in Comic-Con in 2009. The most depressing sight in the world, by the way. You go to Comic-Con in San Diego, the atrium, which is on the top of the convention center, is this big open glass kind of space, massive space. And up there is where they have basically celebrities, in inverted quotes, so-called celebrities, B-grade celebrities, buy a trestle table, and they sit behind a trestle table with all their photos laid out, and you can go up and pay money to get their autograph, and that's how these people now make a living. There's a big empty space with nobody up there, Vernon Wells behind his table with his wife, just the saddest looking guy in the world. No one anywhere near him or around him. I didn't even know he was going to be there. I just walked past and was like, geez, that's... Actually, no. I found it in the guide because Vernon Wells has had a lot of plastic surgery since Commando. He doesn't look anything like Vernon Wells anymore. So he's sitting behind there with his photographs, and I went up to him. And no, I'm sure he hadn't spoken to anyone for an hour. He was the grumpiest, surliest bastard I've ever met.
Really?
And I thought, I'm Australian, you're Australian. Not that he's been in Australia to live for a long time, but I thought, and no one had spoken to him for like he was a stinky bastard, but still he turns around with contempt and treats me like I'm a parasite. And it wasn't until there's something I said, and I can't remember what it was, it might have been a Vegemite reference or whatever it was to try and get him on board. His wife, who's American, she started engaging. And she was telling me these stories about Vernon, like wives will do and they embarrass their husbands, kind of. She was talking about how the first thing Vernon does when he touches down in Australia and goes and buys a meat pie, because he can't buy meat pies in the United States, not the way we have them. So that's the first thing he always does. He has to stop what he's doing, whatever he's going on, go and get a meat pie. His wife and I were kind of bonding, and then eventually he kind of got drawn into the conversation. But yeah, he was telling me about how the costumes were all a bit tight, and they didn't have enough time or budget to replace them. So he kind of made alterations himself, kind of cutting the sides up so that they would fit, and yeah, very uncomfortable kind of process for him.
Interesting. And let's try and keep the jokes to a minimum here. Elisa Milano plays Jenny Matrix as well. Have I just taken more of your good material there, Matt?
No, not at all. Taken
away some of your good material.
I mean, she was a child star and got a movie like this to do. I don't have much bad to say about her. Unless we're going to talk about her music. I think she's all right.
No, she does really well in this role for what she's got to work with.
She has dungarees
haircut in the
definitely.
Yeah.
You know what is awkward though is that weird montage where kind of Schwarzenegger and Milano are father-daughter bonding, and it's just really
with the deer.
I know,
it's either deer. The deer's weird. Apparently, it's in the commentary. They talk about how that was going to be the start of the film. It was like a proper 15-minute sequence of them being father and daughter, and then they realised it was an action film and no one wants to see that shit, so they cut it down into a montage. But yeah, it's so bizarre, the ice cream thing, and it's just all very weird. Oh, and the pool, that's awkward.
And just before that as well, there's Arnie's intro where he's carrying the tree. Pretty much sums up the movie there.
I love that.
With gratuitous muscle shots as well, where they actually have like a shot up his arm.
You don't even see him. They kind of show him piece by piece, muscle by muscle.
Piece, right?
That big log on his shoulder with the tea towel over it to protect his skin from that bullshit.
According to Lester as well, this was done to represent the notion of the invincible man of the earth emerging from the forest.
There you go.
It's quite poetic, isn't it?
So, also, can I just make mention of such an 80s sound effect that appears in this movie as well? There's a hilarious sound effect whenever he looks at his digital watch. When he after he escapes the plane and he just looks down at his watch, has that close-up shot of the watch, and the watch is actually going beep, beep,
as it's counting down.
Like that, right? But only when you look at it, of course.
When you look at it.
Otherwise, that would be annoying the shit out of you if you were just walking around and there was this watch going beep.
It's a bit like, Homer Simpson only wears a watch when they need to refer to a watch, and the rest of the time he only beeps when he looks at his watch.
Now, over the years, one of the most common topics of conversation regarding this film relates to Bennett's sexuality. Right? Okay. Is he homosexual? And more specifically, is he in love with Matrix? Although the official answer to this question is no, on the DVD commentary, Mike Lester states, "I don't know what people are saying when they say that to me. He seems to me like the most macho soldier or person you could think of. But the question remains active, and the theory that Bennett is secretly in love with Matrix continues to be popular amongst fans. For example, in the British film magazine Hot Dog, an article by Andy McDermott entitled "What About Vernon Wells as Bennett in Commando?" discussed his sexuality with tongue firmly in cheek. In this article, McDermott argues, as do many fans, that Bennett's clothes are a dead giveaway to his hidden homosexuality, describing them as Freddie Mercury casual. Leather trousers, a chunky string vest with a belt worn over it, and what looks like a bike chain around his neck. All that's missing is a studded armband. Taking this into account, McDermott points out that Matrix is the polar opposite of this. He's presented as the ultimate man, so much so that it deserves capitalization. He's a man's man. He owns more guns than Ted Nugent and Hunter Thompson combined. His earlobes have muscles. He exudes so much testosterone that bullets bounce off him. McDermott goes on to argue that while Bennett always calls Matrix by his first name, suggesting affection and familiarity, Matrix always calls Bennett by his surname, suggesting distance. This leads him to hypothesize that perhaps Bennett was kicked out of the unit by Matrix because Matrix discovered that Bennett had become sexually attracted to him. All he wanted was a little love and instead he got fired. No wonder he's mad. McDermott also attaches great metaphorical significance to Matrix's line at the end of the film, "Put the knife in me, look me in the eye and see what's going on in there when you turn it. Don't deprive yourself of some pleasure. Come on, Bennett, let's party." The image of one man putting something in another man and then turning it, McDermott argues, has obvious homosexual connotations. He also points out the significance of the fact that Matrix's knife is bigger than Bennett's, thus causing knife envy in Bennett, prompting him to attack his love-hate object. McDermott also comments on the irony inherent in the fact that although Bennett seemed to be in love with Matrix, it is Matrix who penetrates Bennett at the end of the film with a steel pole in the chest, which probably wasn't what Bennett had in mind.
Tough love.
Wow.
Tough love?
You just stole my Freddie Mercury pants. That's another one. Another one bites the dust. But thank you.
But how much of this do you guys see in the final version of the movie? Or is this just...
You can find anything if you look hard enough, really, can't you?
To be honest with you, I thought so. I thought there was definitely some kind of weird subtext there.
Okay.
And I think, Vernon Wells in that role is essential to that because, I mean, he was that, he played that kind of homosexual figure in Mad Max 2 as well, and it just seems to be his style is just this kind of...
Did you ask him that, Bruce?
I did not ask him whether his character was gay in Commando.
Might be why he was looking a bit pissed off. Everyone kept asking.
I was surprised he actually had a wife when you mentioned that. I was just like, I'm sure he went the other way.
It might be why he tells everyone so quickly that the costumes weren't his originally. And no, I wasn't a gay man. They were another guy's costume. That's what all I could find. That's all I could find.
You said you've seen this film 100 times.
Yeah.
Did you just let that sort of wash over you?
As a kid, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. But what about now?
Not really. I mean, I've got so much nostalgia wrapped up in this film. I don't think about it too much. I just enjoy the way it rolls along.
Yeah.
I guess so. I mean, it's there if you want to see it there. And it's not really discussed, their prior relationship before the film starts, isn't that obvious? Bennett has left Matrix's group before the group is disbanded.
Yes.
Which is interesting, and he was one of the first relocated. I mean, yeah, okay, it's fine. But it's also one of those things where, it's like a bunch of coincidences have come together to make that look that way, potentially. Yeah. But who knows? Maybe Jeff Loeb and Wiseman and D'Souza, maybe that was part of their fun when they were writing it. Maybe that was.
I think it adds to the film. It makes it more hilarious and over the top.
I'm worried about a guy that spends that much time looking into a film to find more depth for a film that doesn't have any depth. But
true. Not that surprising, really.
Yeah, but sure, of course it's there, and it makes things interesting, doesn't it?
It does.
Kind of mixes it up a bit.
It does. We've mentioned a couple of the previous episodes about the mid '80s era and some of the gratuitous swearing and the use of swear words and the like. Now I'm going to throw in nudity as well, because just that scene in the middle where Cook and Matrix are having a fight in the motel, and just break through the door into like the motel room next door, and just an excuse to get a few tits in there.
Awesome scene. Awesome.
This is this 80s trope, and it's disappeared, I guess, to a degree. But there are a whole bunch of films where there's tits for no reason. Stripes has tits for no reason. The first Police Academy film has
any 80s slasher horror movie.
Most of the Dirty Harry action films, there was always a scene of chasing, falling into someone's bedroom while someone's at it or something. It was quite common, I guess.
The 80s were the decade of boobs.
They were, but it is. It's just a gratuitous boob scene for no reason. Oh yeah, it's great.
Also, I love it when this film was made for $10 million, which I guess that's a fairly standard movie back in the mid '80s.
Well, Ghostbusters. What do we say? $26 million. That's a reasonable budget. That's a good budget. The Indiana Jones films of that era, Beverly Hills Cop, they were kind of up in that territory. Whereas this is a smaller budget film, and $10 million's not bad.
There's just some things that I just find hilarious, like. The scene where, like, at the start where they've taken Jenny and there's that car chase, and Arnie just gets in his car and they've tampered with the car, and so he pushes it down
the mountain
with no brakes. The brakes have been down, and he goes down.
He's coming at us with no brakes.
I love that bit because, like, they repeat footage. It's hilarious.
Oh yeah.
They're driving along.
There's not enough coverage.
They're driving along. They look to the left and they go like, "He's coming at us," right? And he misses them. And then they go. There's this weird geography where they must go like they're going down the mountain. So they're sort of going back and forth. They come back again. He's coming at us again. It's exactly the same footage of the car coming down. I love that when they do that. It's so bad. And if you ever look, it's so obvious it's the same footage, or maybe just a little bit of like a later part of the same take or something like that. But it's the same hill and the car's coming down.
That is one of the least impressive kind of car crash sequences in cinema ever, too. And
the car explodes as well.
Yeah, the Bronco kind of just lilts over lazily and then explodes for no reason. And he comes running out of it just all angry and like the Incredible Hulk. Oh, it's fantastic.
That scene would have been real shit with airbags. or maybe really amusing.
I would have thought in that period, Schwarzenegger being a man's man, he just ripped those airbags out anyway. He doesn't need that.
No, I mean, I think that this film, obviously the storyline leaves a lot to be desired, but this time watching it, I couldn't get away from it. I just want to ask everyone, the opening scene with the garbage truck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if he had put the bins out, the film kind of wouldn't have gone on with it. No. It's kind of... If he... Like that, it's a pretty shit plan. Yeah. When you think about it, like these guys are supposed to be like high-end operatives from the army or whatever, and their plan is hopefully he's forgot to put his fucking rubbish out, and we'll be able to shoot him because he'll come running out with it.
I know.
But that's your opening scene. Surely when they were writing the script, someone didn't say, hang on a second, I know this is the start and it's already...
We're going to start unpicking things from the first scene. We're just not going to get anywhere. There's plenty to unpick in this one.
But at least the first scene. At least,
What else, Brose, from the first scene jumps to mind?
No. I mean, all those sequences where they take out the old operatives from Matrix's unit, they're all a bit questionable. Like the guy in the car dealership, I mean, that's a bit questionable as well. But
doing a drive...
escaping the exploding boat as well.
It's never explained. Well, you watch the footage, it's like, yep, he's on the boat and it explodes. Like, how? You can see him behind the wheel, out in the open, in the boat, on top of it, and it explodes.
I know.
How?
Look, I know. Not. I mean, I would have thought the easiest thing in the film would just be killing off people. Like that's like, do you know what I mean? Like even the getaway on a garbage truck, that's just going to go really slow. You know what I mean? Like you could run.
I don't think that upmarket area of LA, they're familiar with gunfire at that time of the morning.
Maybe not.
It's not Lower Compton or anything.
I think how is the first question we should remove from any discussion about Commando. But look, this movie has numerous classic action sequences. So how many films can you list this many monumental action scenes in the space of 90 minutes, all right? The mountaintop siege with the ensuing car chase, the aeroplane escape, the chaos at the mall, the motel room smackdown, the prison break scene with Cindy and her rocket launcher, the island massacre at the end where he kills apparently 80 or something bad guys, right? And the final battle with Bennett with the steam, the steam pipe. Like, seriously. Like, not even many action films can claim to have that many classic action sequences all in a 90-minute stretch.
Absolutely sensational. It's so good, this film.
Favourite lines from the movie? One
of the great sequences, and the one I go to quite often, because it's kind of like two different things happening with just these great little one-liners kind of propelling the plot. Sully. Here's the other thing. I thought Sully's name was Sally, because the way Schwarzenegger says it throughout the whole film... Sully. And then I look at the credits, like, a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, it's Sully. That makes more sense. So Sully and... what's the big guy's name? I can't remember his name.
Cook?
No. The guy that is on the plane with Schwarzenegger at the start of the film.
Poodle haircut.
Yeah, the poodle haircut. That is so bad. So those two are at the airport, and he says to Sully, there's a great line. It's like, oh, you're a very funny man, Sully. I'm going to kill you last. That's not the bit I like. It's later on when he kills Sully, which is brilliant. He's holding him over the cliff.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
And then he drops him, and that is hilarious. And then he turns around and walks across. What's her name? Ray is standing there next to their demolished car. So she's not worried about the fact that he just dropped a guy off the cliff. She's like...
What'd you do with Sully?
I let him go.
Which is just insane. He just killed a man. And then she turns around and goes... It's like I let him go, I guess he must have walked then. Now we don't have a car, and he pushes Sully's Porsche back onto its four wheels because it's gone up on its side.
Now I do.
It's like, it's just ridiculous. That sequence there's 3 killer lines within about 2 minutes, and he murders a guy, and he pushes a car back onto its side and drives it off.
Can we just go back to where he rips the car seat out as well for that chase, and he still sticks out like a sore thumb?
Still taller than Cindy.
Yeah. And also he didn't have to adjust the seat when he got into the Porsche. I don't know if anyone noticed. I was watching it thinking, because Sully is the smallest guy in the film, he just jumps into it. Now, my wife, we drive a Golf, and when she uses that, I have to adjust the seat, pull it back, get in. He just fucking jumps in and off they go. Oh, it's the 80s. That's where it is.
Favourite line from Commando, Matt?
It's actually just been said, but I do like the one at the end as well. Let off some steam.
That's a good one. Yeah. Andrew, favourite line from Commando?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think that the classic "Let Him Go" sequence is the pinnacle of the movie for me. It's, that kind of trio of actions.
It's just so bizarre when you think about it.
It's basically that's the iconic '80s action movie moment.
The other great line is the on the plane, and he asphyxiates the guy next to him, who's supposed to be his bodyguard or whatever, and says to the flight attendant,
"Excuse me, how long is the flight?"
We land in Valverde in exactly 11 hours.
Thank you. And do me a favor. Don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired.
Like, it's just so stupid and brilliant and hilarious. It's
perfect. It's perfect. And just quickly on Sully as well. Like, that guy, the actor who plays...
Is he the sleaziest guy?
He is just a little shit, that guy, right?
He's so good. Oh, it's brilliant.
What about his line as well when he takes his he goes to meet up with that Colombian guy, like in the bar, in the mall, in the mall, like, and
to get the passports.
He just says this line as well. He's got this line. He just says, "This place used to be good for hunting slash."
Can I change my favourite line in the film? Can we go back a bit?
He's in a bar connected to a shopping centre.
I know. Speaking of Cindy as well, there's no romance is ever implied between her and Matrix at any stage.
Yeah, because Matrix and Bennett.
She gives him a look over when he gets in his Speedos into the boat when he's going to the island at the end, but that's just a real gratuitous.
And there's a weird happy ever after implication at the end of the film.
Like a family thing.
Yeah, like the three of them are now a family for no reason. Yeah. That's what happens.
Yeah. And they fly back on the piece of shit plane. Where she's not really a pilot either, is she? So that's probably the safest way to get home with the daughter that you've just saved from the clutches of evil.
And interestingly, like, the reason she sticks around that long is because she has some piloting experience. But it turns out that John Matrix has never flown a plane with everything else he can do. Like, surely he can fly. He doesn't need her at that point.
He can do everything else.
He can do everything else, but apparently I've never learned how to fly.
Can I just say, he's poor with time management, though, because when he gets in that little rowboat with just his jocks, wouldn't it have made more sense to kind of, like, be half-dressed when they were in the plane? Because then when he gets there and he's like, shit, this is cutting it close, and he spends about half an hour putting everything on. Because it's not like it's going to be heavy. It's already on the boat with him. Yeah, so it's kind of like...
It's not saving him from getting it wet or anything.
It's almost that's just for Bennett, that scene. You know what I mean? That's just him rowing for Bennett. And thank God thank God he wasn't Commando at that point, because... that would have been a different film.
It would have been Ballsack, it would have been called.
Quick note as well that this is the first film after Terminator to feature I'll Be Back, because obviously Terminator's where it came from, and he says,
"I'll be back, Bennett,"
towards the start of the movie.
And then John's like, no, it's Bennett has the great reply.
John, I'll be ready, John.
I'll be ready, John, in the big, thick Aussie accent. Has I'll Be Back ever had a reply, or a retort, though? Like,
I don't know. I have to look back.
Like, that could be the only time where he's like, I'll be back. John, I'll be ready, John. It's so creepy. He's so good in this film. See, Bennett gets some great lines as well. Because they tranquilise Matrix, and then he wakes up after being tranquilised. What is this? He says to Matrix, "I wanted to use the real thing." And, like, is he referring to his penis at that point? I'm not sure.
There is another great line in the climax fight between them where there's this standoff behind the walls, and it's like, "John, just stick your head out for a second, John."
How's your arm, John?
Yeah, that's right, John. I don't need the girl. I don't need the girl. I don't need the gun.
Well, some of the bad guys are like having a discussion about what they're going to do to Jenny, and he goes, "Put the knife away and shut your mouth."
This film is amazing.
Okay, so did you know that the film was originally conceived as a vehicle for Gene Simmons?
I don't understand that.
Me either.
Did you know about Nick Nolte as well?
Yes.
Can you imagine
here as well?
Can you imagine him in the Speedo scene? I'm kind of glad they went with Schwarzenegger when you think about it.
Would have been given quite the same look over.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Wow, that's so bizarre. I mean, Nolte then went to appear in 48 Hours, which was written by D'Souza, who wrote Commando. So, yeah, interesting.
That's it. There's an amazing cameo in this film. One of my favourite actors, Bill Paxton, appears very briefly as the intercept officer.
Nice.
Yeah, he was in Terminator the year before in a similar small role as a punk at the start of that film as well. So just making his mark at this stage.
Is that 3 movies he's been with Schwarzenegger on? Terminator, this one, and True Lies, yeah.
I think so.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Nice.
perfect 3.
There you go. Did you know the mansion used in the final shootout between Matrix and Arius, which is the Harold Lloyd estate in Beverly Hills, apparently,
there you
is the same mansion seen in the final shootout between Axel Foley and Victor Maitland in Beverly Hills Cop.
It pops up in quite a lot of films, that mansion. Yeah, it's quite famous, but they shoot it really well. Like, the 2 films shoot it quite differently, which is nice. I can't remember the other film. There's another film I've seen, and they kind of shoot it the same as Beverly Hills Cop, and you're like, oh, this is the Beverly Hills Cop mansion. That's weird. But yeah.
Do you guys want to have a quick guess at the official number to how many people Schwarzenegger kills in this movie?
Something like that. It's well over 100, isn't it? Is it like 125 or something?
Have a guess.
I'm going to go somewhere around 125.
Okay.
Between 80... Actually kills them.
Yeah,
80 and 85, somewhere in there.
Andrew?
Look, I'm going to go 111. I like it as a number.
Matt's the winner. 81.
Yeah.
You actually rounded that down pretty well.
Because actually killing them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because there's all those police people.
There's a lot of injuries.
Yeah, there's a lot of security guards he beats the shit out of.
Matt's rationale is, well, we're not quite sure if that guy died or was just severely
injured.
The guy with a coma, but he died related to a stuff up with some medication later. It was an allergic reaction, so that doesn't count. Yeah. And do we really?
He's obviously got a pretty good radar because he got 81 between 80 and 85.
Yeah,
so you know he's like switched on with that.
Well, no, it's because you said earlier he kills 80 people in that scene at the end when we at the start of this podcast. Yeah, he did actually say that. So I'm just thinking, well, he only ever killed the only other guy. Actually, no, that would have been 82. So yeah, that's what I was thinking because he kills Sully and the cook in the motel,
and he kills the guy on the plane. So there's 3 more. What are you kissing Adam's ass by listening to what he says for? I mean, that's not how we do this.
That's not how real chat works.
That's not how it works.
Let's talk a little bit about the DVD and Blu-ray releases, Brose. First DVD of Commando was released in 1999, and common with early DVD releases, the disc featured a very unattractive, non-anamorphic video transfer, a basic stereo track, and only the trailer as an extra.
Yeah, this is a bizarre thing. I picked up the American release DVD, which you've got as well.
Yes.
Which was released in
2007,
and has a plethora of extras and bits and pieces. Yeah. That's the first time I'd seen the film complete. That's uncut, isn't it, that version? It's got the director's cut on as well with extra bits in it.
It's got the uncut theatrical cut, and it's got that director's cut.
The version we watched growing up was the VHS copy from TV of the TV edit. And not only that, my grandma recorded it off TV, or my uncle recorded it, and didn't always hit record in time to start after the ad break. So we missed big chunks of sequences that happened after ad breaks. So watching the full film for the first time, which was around 2008, blew my mind. Some of the stuff I saw was like, this wasn't in the version I saw. So it's interesting because I had the very kiddie-friendly, very innocent, kind of fun, action-packed. It's a violent, bloody film in parts, and that's not what I grew up with. But it's still nice to get a little bit of extra bits and pieces.
Yeah, so I haven't seen this DVD for a while, Bruce. This Region 1 director's cut, which actually does have some features on it as well. A couple of documentaries, short, but...
it's got... this is the frustrating thing about films that were made in the 80s. In the 80s... every bloody film had a film crew on it recording a TV special of some kind or a behind-the-scenes thing or there's just so much of this footage that's never been released, and that's kind of what makes up most of the Commando extras. You know, a little featurette on the making of, which might be a 21-minute thing, and then little cast and crew interviews on set and stuff. The funniest of which is Ray effusively praising Schwarzenegger's work. More than a little crush there, I would suggest. Possibly even an on-set romance. She's a little bit embarrassing with how flattering she is of Schwarzenegger's work, and it's kind of very funny to watch.
It is funny to watch. Yeah. Also, there's a commentary from Mark Lester as well. Now, I haven't heard this before, but you have in the past.
Yeah, it's a great commentary. It does everything you want it to do. And one of the things that's worth highlighting in this example, give or take, there's kind of 2 types of commentaries for a film. There's either they get together a group of people that worked on the film and try and use the energy of a reunion to make the commentary work. Then there's just having the director talk about it, or maybe the screenwriter, but usually the director just talking about it. Having just the director is more often than not a better commentary, because the directors are organised people. They think about things. So they usually come prepared. They're not going to walk into a studio unprepared. He's really prepared. He's made notes. He's talking about all different things that happened during the film, why things were cut, why you put things back in. It's really thorough. It's really entertaining, as opposed to when you just get a group of people that have done no research. So it's only the director, but it's fantastic. Schwarzenegger's only ever done one comment? Two commentaries?
Total Recall and Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, that's bizarre. And what are they like? I've not heard either of those.
Awful. But it's just funny because Arnie just pretty much just tells you what he's doing throughout the course of the film. And how funny was that? Wait for this moment. How funny am I in this moment?
I think I've seen the Total Recall one
with Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah. And because he hasn't seen the film since it came out, and he's just sitting back and kind of enjoying it in parts and preempting what's about to happen. But so it's a great little commentary. Well, I enjoyed it anyway. But
the director's cut DVD. It's it's definitely the best way to.
The transfer's not great. The video quality's not great, but the extras are just exceptional. It's really good.
But in 2008, the theatrical version was released on Blu-ray. But there's nothing on it, and it hasn't been reissued. So
it looks a bit washed out as well. I was watching that last night. I didn't think it was great. Yeah,
it's not great, but I just keep on thinking this is Commando, and this is probably the best this film's ever.
Well, look, watching on VHS is probably better anyway. But just as a Blu-ray, just as a comment on it, it just
did bring out a few of the stunt.
It's worth the $9.98 you pay for it, JB.
Did bring out a few of the stunt people though, a lot more obvious. Than
there's the cardboard cutouts you can see at the mansion when they blow something, and one of them's tied to a pole, so it just kind of expands, and that's great. That's worth it.
A whole extra layer to this film. That is so good.
That's so good.
I'm getting the Blu-ray.
So really, the body count's wrong because some of them are cutouts. Because they really kill people in films, don't they?
How many balsa wood cutouts died during the production of the film?
Ask me what the body count in 7 was. That's
oh man!
All right, we're going to have a bit of fun with this section. Andrew, let's talk a little bit about James Horner's score, because this film just completely sums up Horner's career right there. What can you tell us about this?
I don't think it's going to be performed at concert halls in the near future. It's not one of his greatest works. But it is bloody hilarious and great fun for a great fun movie. It must be said.
Particularly interesting for you because you are a big Horner fan.
I am, yes.
Yes, and he's got a very, very impressive body of work if you look over his career, particularly in the mid-90s where he had Braveheart, Apollo 13, Legends of the Fall, was that one of them as well? And then Titanic, obviously, and then more recently Avatar and the like. But you don't see any of that at all in Commando. Not even a kernel.
No, it's very much a Horner light, is what you'd call it. I think he was maybe doing something else. It's definitely animated. It's very excitable. But I think he...
In parts it sounds like his improv, jazz, funk, experimental. In parts of it sounds like his kind of jazz funk experimental band's album from 1973 or something.
Hey, maybe I can finally dust this stuff off and give it a crack. But
remember that instrument we learned about in second year at music school? Yeah, let's use that weird thing. It's just the...
If there was a music editor on this film, he didn't do much because it is just constantly playing in the background.
Just bang,
there are scenes where you've got that constant bang, 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 bang. There's action going on. But you've cut to a scene of Dan Hedaya sitting down on the couch, and it's still going.
It's really intense drums and synth and the steel drums,
the saxophone.
He's just thrown every possible bizarre instrument together and to see if it sticks, and it's the results is like a mad woman's shit. The main title actually it sounds a bit Horner-esque. Yeah,
the really cheesy main title where he's doing all
sincere kind of family theme, the heart of the film kind of moment. Yeah,
but the rest of it it's manic. That's the best way I can describe this.
It is quite interesting, the score, in that it's not a finely crafted score that helps shape the narrative or plot or even characters. It's just creating an energy, a madcap.
That's right.
And the other thing that happens often in films with bad acting is, you use the score, you bring it up a bit when the scene's, badly acted, and it kind of, I'm thinking of the first Harry Potter film specifically, but it happens in a lot of films where all of a sudden the acting's not as good, so you bring the music up and about the same level as the dialogue, and all of a sudden you're not paying as much attention. This film is it's like, I don't know if people remember, people may not remember, in the 90s there was a craze in dance radio, so like your Kiss FMs or whatever, to have music playing in the background when the DJ was talking, because it was creates a club vibe and club act, and it's just really distracting and annoying, because all you can hear is the crap going on in the background, and it's got that kind of feel. It's like, they've watched the cut and just gone, I'll just put more of the music in and try and just... Because it's quite a fast-paced film anyway.
Yep.
But that really kicks you up the arse and says, we're not hanging around on anything here, let's just...
The catchphrase of the film is "Let's party," so I guess it's the music. But, having said all that, there is the one magic moment where image and music just marry perfectly together, and it's the quick edited montage of the preparations for battle, whereas the slamming of the magazines, the tightening of belts and locking in grenades, the massive reveal of the man himself. It's a glorious moment.
I think, Horner probably spent most of his time on that moment as well.
I think so.
But what about the couple of releases that have come out of this score as well, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm glad they released two of them because you just don't get enough random saxophone playing for my liking in the first release. That's right, there was one... it's amazing because there's actually a bit of a fan base for...
So the Commando soundtrack's been released twice. Like, to the general public as a retail CD or whatever. But we talked about 7 last time, and that's never been released?
Correct, yeah.
This is so bizarre, isn't it?
It is. The world is a crazy place.
Wow. Like, this is bizarre. Like, how weird is that?
Will it include the... what's that track at the end?
We Fight for Love by Power Station.
Because that's just one of those classic 80s tell you literally what's happening in the scene. Like, I will protect you.
It's the only song in the movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't included on that initial soundtrack release, but then the reissue actually put it on at the end.
Oh, that's fair enough. They should have... That makes sense. They should have re-released it.
Yeah,
that's good. No,
it's come full circle.
But
I retract my previous statements. It deserved the second release. Yeah.
But both of these releases, though, were limited editions. Like, if you actually wanted a physical copy of it these days, you'd have to pay a fortune on eBay or something to get one. So
it's more enjoyed as a collectible rather than a listening experience.
So yeah, it got expanded with that re-release as well. Like it was, so they just added more of that Horner stuff onto the release.
It's hard to differentiate between tracks on that album. Like, it's just... Anyway.
I'm telling you now, on the expanded one as well, there are a few tracks at the start, which is... You know how, like, the movie's got that, like, foreboding, like...
Oh, yeah.
There's about 3 tracks which has nothing but that at the start on the expanded album.
Wow.
They give you the complete score and they don't hold out on anything.
I'm pretty sure the third release is going to have some of Alyssa Milano's tracks on there, so that looks like you, Matt. So.
It just gets better and better.
Anything else on the score there, Andrew? That's pretty much got it covered.
Look, I just want to listen to it now, really. If we could just wrap this up so we can get onto that.
Press play, Bruce. Yeah, that's right. All right, so, because there is... We made mention to it when we were speaking about the DVD. There is an alternate version, a director's cut, which is an entire... And how's this for a marketing thing with the DVD, Bruce? 1 minute and 41 seconds longer than the theatrical cut. So it gives you a lot of material for your buck.
That's disappointing. I was hoping it would be like in real time and be a full 11-hour Commando film, which would be like insane.
Amazing.
Imagine the soundtrack. Maybe that's why there's 2 releases of it.
I've never thought about it before, but Commando really is the influence for the series 24, isn't it? I mean, that's...
Yeah. So yeah, 1 minute and 41 seconds longer than the theatrical cut. A couple little bits that they added back in. Colonel Arias tells the kidnapped Jenny that if Matrix should cooperate with them, she will meet her dad again pretty soon. Her reply differs in the director's cut. In the theatrical cut, she prefers to smash Arias' head in. And in the director's cut, she preferred to see her dad kicking Arias' ass. So
just to make it a little bit more homoerotic, yeah.
That's it. An additional scene during the car chase with Matrix and Cindy. She tells him that her name is Cindy and asks for his name. He hesitantly replies, Matrix, John Matrix. Further, Sydney is also asking about his profession, and Matrix tells her that he is a colonel in the US Army, which does not seem to impress her at all.
Probably because he's Austrian. and the guy he used to work with in his unit is Australia. Are there any American heroes? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, they got killed at the start of the film.
And maybe that's why the Australian guy was cast. Maybe they thought, oh yeah, we've got to get another Austrian in, and then just to, you know what I mean? Like,
which part of Austria are you from? Wells?
G'day, John.
I'm from the other part of Austria, mate.
Cindy's asking John about Jenny's mother and what happened to her. He tells her that she died when she gave birth, and he adds that he was stationed with the US Army in Laos by that time.
Yep.
Okay, so Cindy's asking for more details about his time in Laos and what he did when he was there, but he only tells her that there were special things for him to do, things she'd be better off not knowing about, things he would very much like to forget. So, yeah, and besides that, they just added in some more violence, which is probably the best additions to the director's cut.
Nothing wrong with that.
Some violence has been added back into the famous slaughtering scene at the shed. The theatrical version shows the arm of the man who's being hit by a saw blade, but the director's cut shows in close-up that the saw blade gets stuck in the man's throat. All right, so a little bit more violent. And when Matrix chops off one guy's arm with some sort of bushwhacker knife, the director's cut shows the guy touching his bloody stump for a little longer, and you see Matrix dropping the arm as well. So seconds we're talking about here being added back in. But probably the best additions to the director's cut, probably.
Yeah, I think a lot of films could benefit with extra violence added in, so it works out all right.
Originally, he was supposed to hit the victim with this arm and say, need a hand. This scene was never shot, however. But I don't know why they held back on that.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make much sense.
I think they thought it would be too violent for the film. Yeah.
I don't want to miss the one-liners and puns with the violence. I want to keep those two very separate.
There's also a couple of alternate Arnie one-liners for Bennett's death by steam pipe. Instead of saying, like, I let off some steam, which is a very famous line, a couple of alternate takes, which you all be glad to hear he doesn't, but they ended up not using.
I hate small talk.
What does that even mean? Because they're chatting back and forth?
If anything, he loves small talk because he only has a couple of lines throughout the whole film. So
king of small talk. Smaller the better.
I think it was too much pressure for you, Bennett.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's a queen under pressure. That's what they've done there. That's clever. That's probably why they pulled that one. Yeah.
Can't take the pressure, Bennett, huh?
Yeah, they didn't use that one because Arnie doesn't actually know how to, read something and make it sound like a question. So.
Exactly.
Can I add one? Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. That's great.
That would have been much better alternate version. Yeah. And then there are two scenes that were taken out that weren't put back in the director's cut, but they're on the DVD, I think. In the wreckage of the mall, General Kirby warns a police detective not to pursue Matrix.
Yeah, that's a good deleted scene. I like that because that helps. Kirby is one of the only credible characters in the film. Like, he's not a parody or a pastiche. He plays it quite straight and quite serious. So that bit would have added some really nice seriousness to the situation before it gets ridiculous.
Ask him not to pursue Matrix as it's too dangerous.
Yeah,
right?
It's a nice little scene.
The policeman's not happy with this advice, but Kirby tells him that the safest course of action would be to let the situation play out as Matrix wants it to. And then there's one more scene, very, very brief. In the final sequence, we see Kirby arrive on the beach, and a soldier tells Matrix to freeze as he carries Jenny from the camp, and Matrix completely ignores him and keeps walking. Very short, very brief, but they cut that out. Not sure why.
They're both very interesting scenes, but then they're not. Yeah, they're good.
Now, a sequel was actually written for this film by D'Souza and Frank Darabont as well, Brose, based on the 1979 book Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe. But Schwarzenegger was not interested. The script was reworked with a new central character, eventually played by Bruce Willis, and was retitled Die Hard.
Wow.
Did anyone actually know that Die Hard was actually, once upon a time, a sequel to Commando?
They are essentially the same, premise.
Well, what's John McClane? He's Commando. He's police commando in a building.
It's just a more of a realist interpretation, isn't it?
I think that was the original name for Die Hard, police commando in a building.
Do you think that Die Hard would have worked as a Schwarzenegger movie? Or it would have been very different, obviously. Different. But do you think that it would have had the same legacy as it has today?
You know what? This is the interesting thing about Schwarzenegger's career, at least the way I see things, is I enjoy Schwarzenegger more when there's irony and humour and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek. And even though Schwarzenegger seems completely ignorant to all that, everyone else is well aware of it. And that's, the Running Man is brilliant, and Total Recall's great, and this is a great film. And even Twins, we know that he didn't get the joke. And Kindergarten Cop. So these films, they're funny films in a way, or they're tongue-in-cheek, or they've got a certain element to them. The further Schwarzenegger got through his career, the more he moved away from that and went to more very straight-ahead action films, which I don't understand. And the films that haven't been successful for him over the last 10, 15 years or whatever, they don't really have any of that irony going on. So there's a chance that by the time the sequel of Commando was due to be made, he might have moved too far away from that part of his career anyway. So it might have ended up being a collateral damage or just some.
Well, I think the success of Die Hard was because it wasn't a big muscle-bound figure.
Definitely.
Like it was the everyman, in the action movie situation. And
which is also true for Beverly Hills Cop and Another 48 Hours. But
the audience was starved of that kind of be able to kind of relate in some way. So I think that's If it was Schwarzenegger, who knows? He's a freak.
You can definitely see the lessons the scriptwriters or the screenwriters had learnt on Commando in Die Hard. Like they've definitely evolved the idea into a different film. Which is
Do you think though that he wasn't in on the gag in these movies? I reckon he's got a great comic timing.
He's a very intelligent man, but
he's a good businessman.
I don't know. I just don't know why he moved away from the films with that kind of extra element to them and just started doing very straight, very boring action films with no depth or interest.
Yeah, you look at his most popular films at the box office, and really the one that comes to mind is True Lies, and that is more in line.
What a great film that is!
But that's more in line with Commando in the sense that it's not taking itself seriously at all.
Exactly. Although interesting in that film, Schwarzenegger doesn't do any of that. It's Tom Arnold that does all the pithy one-liners and entertainment.
Yeah.
So but you're right. That's a great little film, and for the similar reasons as Commando. Yeah.
Watching it this time, I kind of thought maybe Taken could have been, adapted to be a sequel to, an older Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando going off to find his daughter and using his skills and what have you. But
have any of you seen his latest movie, Sabotage? Have you seen this movie at all?
No.
This is genuinely a very, very serious, crime drama.
Oh, okay.
And Arnie is the straightest that you ever seen him. But this movie is a flop, and I'm telling you now, it's awful, right? But he is as serious as he has ever been in any of his movies in this film, but it's just not working at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the people didn't speak with their wallets. No one went to see this movie.
I just don't understand why you'd think box office success means that you can now act. Because his success didn't come from acting. It came from just being this kind of puppet, and it's fine because he nailed it. He was great at it. He was the best in the 80s at doing this type of film, and everyone emulated him, Van Damme's and your Seagals and your whatever, but Schwarzenegger was the king of this stuff, but he just, I don't know.
Well, I think because he could walk around in jocks back then as well. Now, that's not. But no, seriously, that film is just muscle porn. It's just constant close up of his abs, his arms. It's exploitative.
Sure.
It's come and gone, hasn't it? This genre. This is a great film that nails that genre. It's the ultimate action movie of the 80s.
All right, Brose. Over to your little section here. Commando collectibles. What have we got?
Spin-offs. Wow. Adam sent me this amazing link earlier in the week, which is brilliant, of the little 6-inch Commando figures. They're released by Diamond Toys around kind of mid-80s. They're kind of like He-Man figures, but they're Commando figures. There's a Schwarzenegger, obviously. The weird thing about this series is none of the other figures are in the film. They're just random bad guys. There's not really... There might be a Bennett, but there's guys named Scorpion, and it's just really... that thing that happened with... I don't remember the A-Team toys had... the 4 A-Team guys and then these random villains for no reason.
So it's almost like they were trying to create some sort of Commando series.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was pictures and animation at some point, but maybe it was even...
It is an absolute tragedy that there's no Bennett figure, because that would be the ultimate...
Oh, look, I've been into some sex shops where there's some very similar outfits, but... And the big news, just in time for the recording of this podcast, Hot Toys have finally released a 12-inch John Matrix figure. Same people that make the Michael J. Fox Back to the Future Marty McFly figure. Adam, I'm sure you're well aware. And it is amazing. It is as good as the 16-inch figure was. This figure is extraordinary. It's photorealistic. It comes with the rocket launcher. It comes with different hand molds. It's bloody awesome. So if you're a fan of this film, make sure you get your hands on the John Matrix Hot Toys 12-inch figure. And that's just about it.
Let's have a look at the awards and the response that this film got. So my favourite, again, Brose, the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films.
You're not even leading with the Academy Awards because there's nothing?
I didn't even... I know I did Ghostbusters 2 and the like. I was sort of saying Academy Awards, none. Golden Globes, none. This time I didn't even go there.
It's just assumed.
I just assumed.
What about a BAFTA? Didn't get a BAFTA?
No.
Okay, let's move on.
No BAFTA either. No.
People's Choice? No.
Straight to the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films. Nominated for Best Special Effects.
Okay.
That's all.
I don't know what it's referring to.
The only other award I could find, the Young Artist Awards. Alyssa Milano was nominated for Exceptional Performance by a Young Actress starring in a feature film, comedy or drama.
So they put this in the comedy box? Like what?
Have to be.
Yeah.
There's no Grammy.
No, there's no Grammy.
Best saxophone solo? Nothing?
No, when was Lost Boys?
Oh, yeah.
No James Holland to be found. That's
Big year for sax in 1987.
The Rotten Tomatoes site certified Commando is fresh, a score of 69%, 22 positive and 10 negative, and the IMDb rating 6.6 out of 10. So the reviewers in full sort of acknowledged the film's tongue-in-cheek humour as well as its status as a cult classic. Pretty much summed it up there. So yeah, we're just going to round this out with our traditional 5-star review system per guest. So I'm going to start with Andrew over here. Final thoughts and score for Commando, Andrew?
Well, I think, it's a story that is still, again, being made today. Like, look at that Keanu Reeves film that's just about to come out, John Wick, I think it's called. Exactly the same premise. It goes on a vengeance path, kills everyone, doesn't get a scratch. But, I've read reviews and that doesn't have any humour in it. Like, it's just, it's begging for that kind of material, and as a result, it's not as enjoyable. So this is just nails that type of film. So going on that context, I would give it 4 stars as a great action movie of the 80s.
And so you'd recommend Commando?
To anyone with a pulse.
Good one.
Nice.
Brose.
Yeah, why not? Let's go 4 stars. Let's go 4 stars on this for a whole bunch of different reasons, but primarily because it's just a good, fun film, and you're going to enjoy it. Don't take it seriously, and you'll be quoting it for, well, I've been quoting it now for 25 years since I saw it the first time. Like, it's just a great, fun film. It's not, it's not Hitchcock, and it's not James Cameron, or it's not doing anything other than exactly what you see on the screen, and sometimes that's good enough.
So 4 stars.
Go and get it. If you haven't seen it, I don't even understand why you haven't seen it.
And you'd recommend it?
Yeah, go and see it. Get it out.
Matt.
Yeah, look, as a 80s action film, it's 5 stars, but as a film, I'm going to give it 3. I think it's great fun. So go and see it, but
you highly recommend
$9, JB Hi-Fi, Blu-ray.
Pick it up.
Yeah, bit washed out. Did I mention that? Yeah.
I'm going to get the Blu-ray.
I'm surprised you haven't got it already, bros.
You know my problem with buying DVDs. Don't get into this now. But I have trouble buying anything on DVD or Blu-ray that has nothing else on it, and I already own it on DVD, and it's good enough. But Blu-ray sounds like it could be a lot of fun just to see the cardboard cutout.
Yeah, it's worth it.
The other thing I recommend
as well.
The other thing I recommend too, for anyone who hasn't seen this film, once you've seen it, watch the final sequence where he arrives on the island and starts killing people. Just watch that in slow motion, because some of those stunt falls off building tops, and there's a guy that does, I think he's doing the lambada at one point when he dies. Like, they are just some of the funniest stunt reactions to being shot in cinema history. And even as kids, we used to watch them in slow motion. I don't know if you ever tried to do slow motion on a VHS player, but it was bloody hard. But yeah, it is just one of the most farcical, hilarious, brilliant stunt action sequences you'll ever see.
Just, people doing the bullet dance. That's what I like. There are a lot of stunt people that do the bullet dance.
We used to climb on top of our cubby house and do impersonations of different stuntmen onto beanbags in the backyard.
There's also some great screams in this film as well. For better people that are dying. But my favourite scream, bros, of the movie is when the famous scene where Sully gets dropped off the cliff.
Yeah.
That scream.
That's a famous scream.
Yeah. And it just sort of gets cut off as well. Oh, it just stops, and he's like,
Tell you what, the other thing too is worth mentioning really quickly. This is the wrong time of the podcast to be mentioning it. One of the great things about watching this as a kid, knowing it was the TV edit, knowing it was, not the full violent R-rated version, our imagination of what we weren't seeing was so much worse than what we actually ended up seeing in the full edit version. Like, it's just, as a kid, you're just like, when Sully gets dropped off the cliff, we had so many visions that we'd talk about what actually happened to Sully. And then you see the film, it's a bit underwhelming, but I also love the idea of what happens when that plane lands and there's a dead guy sitting in the... I love this film.
While the flight's going and there's someone missing from the flight all of a sudden.
The accounting was like, I was like, because
they didn't have plane radios then. They couldn't, there's someone fucking missing from this flight.
And the fact that no one saw someone drop out of a plane at an airport. Anyway, it's great.
But also, he falls a significant distance.
Oh, yeah, that big wide shot of him falling.
He falls a significant
luckily,
distance.
those reeds that he lands on aren't pointing straight up, and they're kind of flattened out already.
He'd be fucked at Tullamarine, that's for sure. It's,
this film is great.
I'm going to review Commando in the same way that our mate Stuart Wilson does on his website, which is he gives a movie 2 review scores. He gives it 1 for what he gives the film out of 5, and then he gives it a Hoopla rating, which is enjoyment factor, because of the fact that I'm going to give it a 3.5-star review, but a Hoopla factor of 5 stars.
So just average it out. It's a 4-star film. Cool, move on. Look, at the end of the day, it's lucky to be a 3-star film, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's so much
4
fun.
stars for me every time.
I mean, you just want to watch it now, so it's a testament to the film.
Exactly, yeah.
Definitely. I think it's like, it's almost the perfect action movie, and, a lot of these action films, you don't need to bring your brain, you just turn up and watch it, and that's what, an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie from the mid-80s pretty much gives you. So, so Commando, very highly recommended from me, but 3.5 stars. That pretty much wraps up the episode, guys, so thanks very much for coming out today and for doing this with us.
No, we didn't come out, either did Bennett and Matrix. Well, they should. The
next episode, we're going to be looking at Matt O'Neill's choice here, which is American Werewolf in London. So that's going to be the next episode. So,
indeed.
Why are we looking at this film, Matt?
Well, it's a great film. It's interesting on many levels. Plenty of information to go into on it, but also The Howling was released the same year. It's kind of one of those like Beatles or Rolling Stones discussions you can have. Yeah, just an interesting backstory and just one of the greatest horror films of all time, I think.
Fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to it. And thanks a lot, guys. And we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.
No worries. See you later, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.